This video is brought to you by Sailrite. Visit Sailrite.com for all your project supplies, tools, and instructions. This chaise lounge needs an update of new decorative fabric. We're going to show you how to reupholster it, but in this video we're going to concentrate on the seat cushion portion of it. In this tutorial video, we'll show you all the steps required to make a cushion like this using the old cushion as a template. The techniques shown in this video will work for any type of box cushion construction, not just a chaise lounge. In separate videos, we'll show you how to sew backrest cushions for a sofa or chaise lounge. Not only that, we have another video showing how to reupholster the entire chaise lounge. You can find the links for those videos in the description. Let's get started and show you how to make this seat cushion for a chaise lounge. Cindy will first discuss disassembly of the old cushion.
This little hook is where the clip attaches to, so I need to keep this and make a new strap and put it back on in the same place. So I'm going to mark where that's at on my cushion top so I get it back close to the same spot.
Here's a look ahead at the hook that is secured with elastic on the inside arm of the chair. The strap with D-ring on the cushion connects to that hook. This helps to prevent the cushion from slipping forward as people sit and get off the cushion. We're going to disassemble this cushion so that we can pattern from it. We're only going to disassemble the top plate. The bottom plate will leave it assembled to the boxing or the banding. So here Cindy is removing the stitching. She is not cutting the fabric, only the stitching, so that the seam allowance is included in that top plate. We'll be using the top plate to pattern both it and the bottom plate. After that's done, we'll measure the banding or the boxing as far as width and length. So all we're doing is only removing the top plate here. There we go, the top plate is separate from this cushion assembly. We'll be reusing the foam since it's in excellent shape here.
We need to measure the length of the band on this big cushion. So I'm going to start back here where the zipper starts, giving myself a couple extra inches, and just follow around with the tape measure to see how much length I need on this piece.
Where this boxing met up with the zipper plaque, she gave herself 2 extra inches.
And I can stop right here at about the center of the cushion is about 56. So 56 times 2 is 112. So I need 112 inches to go around this one.
That's the length of the boxing. Now we'll measure the assembled width of the boxing.
And this one is about 4 1/4 wide, so I want to cut my new band at 5 1/4.
She measured from inside edge to inside edge of the piping. If it had no piping, it'd be from stitch line to stitch line.
Now I'm going to measure the length of my zipper. So I'm going to come down here and give myself a couple extra inches again. This doesn't have to be an exact measurement. And come to about the center of the cushion, which is 27. So I need 54 inches for the zipper band. So I'm going to cut that 54 by 7 1/2 because I'm going to add 2 inches to the 7 1/4, excuse me, because I'm going to add 2 inches to the 5 1/4 to make a piece to turn under right here where the zipper is applied.
Now that we have all that information, we can cut our new decorative fabric to size. To pick your decorative fabric, visit the Sailrite website. You'll find thousands of decor and upholstery fabrics that work great for an upholstery job like this.
Next piece we need to cut is the 2 panels for the seat cushion. And I'm going to fold this in half so that I can kind of make sure that this is following the pattern of the fabric and I don't get it off center.
You may be saying that fabric looks like it doesn't have a pattern, but it actually has a specific weave, and that weave runs up the length of the cushion.
And this is cut just exactly like the cushion is now.
Since some of the seam allowance is folded down, Cindy will pin it so it lays flat so she can cut right on the edge of the fabric to make the decorative piece the same as the old fabric piece in size.
This mark right here is where the little strap goes that holds the D-ring, and I'm going to just make a clip right here to mark that. So I remember to put that back in, and I'm also going to do one on the other side because there's one on each side. And then I can turn this piece over and cut my second one.
So that's the top plate, and now we'll use the top plate to cut the bottom plate of this cushion. It's laying outside surfaces facing each other, and we'll duplicate it. Again, making a mirrored image.
I'm going to make the cut on the other panel also, right where I made the first cut.
Usually chairs do not have D-rings with clips to help hold the cushion in place. This proves it's a nice chair. Now Cindy is striking a straight line on the decorative fabric so that she can cut her banding, or what is referred to as boxing, to the correct width and length. And she's going to measure for the boxing for the zipper, which is called zipper plaque.
These two pieces are for the band of the cushion, and this wider one is for the zipper. So these will stay just like they are, and I'll cut one in half and add it to each side of the longer one. This one I'm going to cut in half lengthwise for the zipper, and I'll do that after I get it cut here.
Since the boxing is longer than the width of our fabric, we'll have to join a piece to it, but we're going to join it on two ends.
This is my zipper piece, and I just folded it in half so I can cut 2 layers at once. This will need to be cut down to 3 5/8.
So we're just cutting the zipper plaque, or the zipper band, in half. And then we'll use 1-inch hem on both sides of the zipper. We'll be showing that in a future step.
And one of these pieces I'll cut in half lengthwise to add on to each side of the other piece.
In doing this, we will not have a seam in the dead center front of our cushion, but rather on the left side and the right side, which we believe looks best.
This is our seat cushion pieces. We have a top plate and a bottom plate. These are the 2 zipper pieces, and this is the band that goes all the way around, and a piece on each side that we're going to sew to it to make it long enough.
We also need to cut fabric for the D-ring. That hook we showed earlier with the D-ring that helps to hold the cushion in place is typically not found on many furniture applications, usually only high-end furniture, which this is. Cindy will use some of the scrap to cut some fabric for those D-rings.
So I'm going to cut those pieces. I need 2 of them, and I'm going to cut them 2 inches wide.
The width measurement is determined by the size of the D-ring, and also she's just copying the old chair. The length needs to be at least the cut width of our boxing. We made it about 7 inches to have extra.
And then I'm going to fold it in thirds and stitch down the center, and then the D-ring will go on when we apply it to the cushion.
When folded like that, the D-ring fits perfectly. For this cushion project, we're going to be using the Sayrite Fabricator sewing machine set up with the Workhorse servo motor. It's a great sewing machine package at a great price. Excellent for upholstery projects like this. Now we have 2 straps that can be used on the left side and the right side for the D-ring and hook. Adding piping to the cushions is optional. We want it on ours. We're going to show you how to make bias piping.
We're going to use up some of these smaller pieces on the cording. So to get started, I'm going to fold this up so that I have a 45-degree angle right here. And if you want to be accurate about that, you can hold your ruler along the edge of this fabric and make sure that this edge lines up with the edge of your ruler. And I'm going to cut along that 45 degree. My cording gets cut at 1 3/4 inches to cover the 5/32 cording. Okay, when I put this together, I want to make sure that the nap is continuous up the cording in case there's any shading differences. So I want to make sure that this end gets attached to this end. So I'm going to mark all the top of these, and then I know that a top goes to a bottom when I sew it together, like this.
We'll need a lot of piping, so we're going to go ahead and continue to cut strips so that we can join multiple pieces together.
So I have one marked edge and one unmarked edge, but in order to put them together, the angle has to be the same. So I'm going to trim this angle at 45, And then I can turn this over and lay these together like that. And I'm going to stitch from that angle to this angle when I put them together. So I have a mark and no mark.
We'll just keep repeating this until we have the appropriate amount of piping to cover our application. We'll be using the Sayrite Fabricator sewing machine coupled with the workhorse servo motor to sew up this upholstery project. We'll sew these strips together with a straight stitch that is set about 4 to 5 millimeters in length. We already have the cording foot installed, though that is only necessary when it comes to sewing the actual cording itself. Once our bias strips are joined together, it's now time to insert the cording and fold it over it. And now the cording foot must be installed, which we already have installed on the Sayrite Fabricator sewing machine. Here we're coming to the first joint. Cindy splays it out so that it lays nice and flat. This is a brand new cording foot that's available only from Sayrite. It's specially designed for the Sayrite Fabricator sewing machine, and it works perfectly, as you can see. Now we'll sew that piping onto the two plates.
I'm going to start my cording at the very back of the cushion, and then that start and stop point will be hid under the when the back cushion is set on there. This is the seat cushion, and it's pretty big.
If you'll be sewing piping on, you need to install a cording foot. This is the brand new Sayrite cording foot for the Fabricator sewing machine, available in 3 sizes. We're sewing 5/32 inch welting, so we're using the 1/4 inch cording foot for the Fabricator. When the cording or piping has to take a 90-degree turn, Cindy cuts a slit right at that corner in the flange of the piping. Then she buries her needle, lifts her foot, rotates the fabric, lowers the foot, and continues to sew down the next side. A bias piping will take a curve easier than a straight cut piping. Here at this curve, watch what Cindy does. Notice that the piping is basically being fed straight into the presser foot, while the fabric assembly is rolled so the raw edges match up. And then when she gets to the corner, she creates that slit, because this is a 90-degree turn, and buries her needle, lifts her foot, and then lowers the foot to turn or to sew down the next side. This brand new foot for the Fabricator sewing machine, available in 3 sizes, works exceptionally well. We are so proud of it. It was specifically designed for the Sayrite Fabricator sewing machine, and it's available only at Sayrite. Let's move on ahead and skip to the part where we started sewing, where the piping or cording needs to be joined up to itself. Cindy will stop sewing about 4 to 5 inches away from the end of the piping where she started sewing, and she'll cut so there's about 3 inches of excess piping going over the first piping that was applied, and she'll rip up the stitches to that point so that she can cut the cording on the inside flush with the end of the other piping. Then the fabric cover is folded to a 45-degree angle, and the other end of the piping is placed inside of it, and then she sews over it with the cording foot. This makes a beautiful joint at the back of the cushion. Now Cindy will create a match-up mark by folding the back half of the cushion in half and creating a notch in the flange and the plate of the cushion, so she knows where the back middle is, and she's doing the same thing to the front middle, creating a slit there so she can match up the boxing to those locations. And we want to do that same thing to the second plate. We will not show this since the process is done in exactly the same way. That is, if you want piping on both the top and the bottom, as we do. Next, we'll be working with the strips of fabric to make the boxing and the zipper plaque. We'll grab the 2 pieces for the zipper plaque boxing. We'll take one of those strips, and on the long side we'll fold it under 1 inch and then place the fold directly on top of the zipper's teeth. With the right side of the presser foot up against the zipper's teeth and the fold in the center of the teeth, we'll sew a straight stitch down the entire length of this zipper plaque boxing. Notice that as Cindy sews, she lifts up the zipper plaque boxing to check to make sure the fold is 1 inch. At the beginning and the end, she does some reversing, though that's probably not necessary for this since it's going to be sewn to the boxing later on. Reversing is always a good habit to get into. Now take the second strip and do the exact same thing, creating a 1-inch fold on the long edge and then butting it up to the fold that is centered on the zipper's teeth. And sew down the length on the same side of the presser foot so that right presser foot is up against the zipper's teeth as she sews the straight stitch. Next, we'll install the zipper slider. To do this, Cindy cuts a little bit of the flange off, and then she'll slide the slider's skinny end onto the end of the zipper, pull the flanges apart, in other words left and right, as the slider is being pushed onto the teeth. This is a locking slider. You can use a locking or a non-locking slider for this zipper. So because it's locking, the tab on the slider has to be pulled on in order for it to zip onto the zipper.
This is the long band that goes around the front of this cushion, so I'm going to attach a piece to either side of it to make it long enough to go all the way around, and then I'll apply the zipper in the middle of this piece here.
Cindy sews approximately a 1/2 inch from the raw edge. You'll notice the selvage has not been cut off of the one strip of boxing. That's no big deal. You'll never see that. That'll be on the inside. If you'd like to cut it off, you may. So here are the 2 ends being sewn on to the boxing.
Our measurement on this band was 56 from the center out, so I'm going to check this one and make sure it's long enough. And it's just a little bit longer, so I'm not going to worry about cutting anything off. We'll just apply the zipper to the middle.
Cindy cuts 2 small squares that will be used for zipper stops. That's been cut out of scrap fabric. Then the zipper plaque boxing is laid on top of the regular boxing, and we sew a 1/2 inch from the raw edge, placing that scrap piece we just cut on top of the zipper's teeth to create a beautiful stop. Outside surfaces were facing each other, and no one will see that stop because it's on the inside of the cushion. We'll do the same thing to the opposite end, making sure there are no twists in the boxing. This portion of the zipper is open, so Cindy pushes them together and will sew them just like it is here with that stop placed on top, that scrap piece of fabric that is, and sews that in just like we did the other end.
I'm going to mark the center of the zipper on this one also.
So the zipper plaque's been folded in half, and she cuts notches not going deeper than the seam allowance, which is a 1/2 inch. That indicates the center of the zipper plaque.
And also the center of the front piece.
So the boxing has been folded in half, and there she will put slits at the middle position there as well, so she knows where the boxing will start at the front middle of the cushion. Now we'll sew the boxing or banding to the plate.
We're going to start sewing at the center front of this big cushion, and I have marked the band in the cushion at the center front.
Since our plate has piping or cording on it, we have to use the cording foot to do this. All we're doing is matching up the raw edges, and notice they don't have to be matched up perfectly. As long as they're close, that's good enough. When Cindy gets to the part where the boxing or banding that's been sewn together, she will lay it flat going one direction. When she sews the other plate on, she'll lay it so it goes that same direction. We're coming close to a 90-degree turn. Watch what she does there. Cuts a slit in the boxing at the corner, buries her needle, lifts the presser foot, rotates the assembly, lowers the presser foot, and then sews down the opposite leg. We're coming to a special clip. Cindy will explain.
This clip right here is where the little strap goes in, so I'm going to insert that as I sew across this seam.
This is the strap that will hold the D-ring. We don't have to install the D-ring yet until we install the second plate. And the D-ring is attached to the hook on the chair just to hold the cushion in place. Not many cushions have those. Stop sewing about 12 inches before you reach the zipper plaque, and then find the center of the zipper plaque, that little notch that we cut into it. Match it up to the back edge of the center notch on the plate. Then what we'll do is we'll fold all the excess boxing under the zipper plaque. Remember Cindy said that we had too much boxing? Well, because of that, she had to cut some stitches out of the sewing that she did so that she can fold it more deeply over that boxing. So here she's matching up the zipper plaque middle position with the plate middle position, and then finding out, walking it over to where the zipper plaque is to determine approximately where the zipper plaque should be folded over the excess boxing. Now what this does is create a beautiful pocket for the end of the zipper. Notice how the edges are not perfectly lined up? That will be quite alright. She's a little bit off there, but in the end it will not show up. I recommend that you keep watching here, even though we're showing this entire clip. Do not become bored and skip on, because Cindy's going to sew past this corner here, and then she's going to stop short before she reaches the boxing on the end of the zipper plaque. Watch. Then she'll explain what she's doing.
Now I'm going to stop right there and go back to the center front and come back around to this side.
The reason we want to stop sewing there and go back to the spot where we began sewing, in other words, the whole assembly will be turned over, so the boxing is on the underside and the plate's on top, and we're sewing in the opposite direction, about 2 to 3 inches over our previous stitching, is so that we can find the fold going the other direction over, or I should say under, the zipper plaque. So we'll sew all the way around to that zipper plaque, and she'll create a fold there. Watch. The Sayrite Fabricator sewing machine, which is what we're using here, coupled with the 1/4 inch cording foot for the Fabricator, or the Sayrite 111 sewing machine, is an excellent combination for an upholstery project like this. The Sayrite Ultra Feed sewing machines are also great for upholstery jobs like this. The boxing is on the underside, and here's a 90-degree turn, so she cuts a slit in the boxing, going no deeper than the seam allowance. Then she buries her needle and lifts her foot, rotates the plate on top of the boxing, and lowers the foot and continues to sew. Now she's creating that excess fold so that the boxing is tucked under the zipper plaque. So now, since we started from the center, we know exactly where that fold should be placed. This folds very deep because we have a little bit of extra boxing, but that is not a big deal at all. See that notch? That notch is for that strap for the D-ring. So she's going to take her second strap and place it in. We have plenty of strap length, so it actually can be sticking out a little bit without an issue. She matches it up to the edge, which is quite alright. And she'll just sew that in. She sews over her previous stitches a few inches. You can do some reversing there if you'd like, and that zipper plaque and boxing is attached to the first plate. There's our strap.
And now I'm going to clip the corners on all the way around also.
She's folding the boxing or banding at each 90-degree turn so that she knows exactly where the second plate should be installed at each one of those corner positions. If the plate does not match up to the slit that she's making, then we know that there'll be askew. So doing this is very important. At each corner, fold the boxing so you know exactly where the next plate's corner should rest on that boxing.
This cushion is pretty big to rely on just your corner clips to get it all in the right place on the second panel. So I'm going to put a few pins in, match up my corner clips, and just use a few pins around the perimeter of it.
Large cushions like this can sometimes be difficult to sew around the perimeter, making sure that the plate lines up with the bottom plate that's already been sewn onto the boxing. So in doing this, at each corner, pinning the fabric, she knows exactly where each corner should rest. You could also use seam stick basting tape for canvas, 1/4 inch width around the perimeter, and baste the boxing to that secondary plate, matching up each one of the slits. Here's the slit at the front middle position. She's matching that up as well, and we'll pin that in place. If you'd like to make this job a little bit easier, you may want to add pins every foot or so around the entire perimeter, especially since this is a large cushion and there's a lot of shape to it. So that's what Cindy is demonstrating here. Cindy typically doesn't do this, but she's made thousands of cushions like this. She's just demonstrating how it would be a little bit easier for a DIYer that has not done a lot of cushions. Now you notice that when Cindy flips the panel here, this notch is a little bit shy of this corner, so she pulls the boxing to match up the notch and pins it there. So the boxing is a little bit stretched there, but she didn't stretch it too much. That's important. If she had to stretch it over 1 inch, then you'd probably have some wrinkles in the assembly. But she probably only stretched it about 1/4 inch or 1/8 inch or so. So completely acceptable.
This is also where you'll apply your D-ring back on there. Don't forget to slide that back on, and then it'll get stitched into this seam.
Cindy could pin the strap in place with the D-ring, but she's going to remove the D-ring. Then when she sews up to it, she'll reinstall the D-ring. Doesn't really matter where you start sewing. We've pinned everything in place. So she's just picked a location and starts to sew around the perimeter. Now notice what happens when she gets to the fold at the zipper plaque end. So she's going to stop sewing there so she can tuck the fold of the boxing so it matches the opposite end. And she's also going to make sure that D-ring is installed on the strap, and the strap is perpendicular to the bottom edge of the boxing. So she's concentrating on 2 things, making sure the strap is tucked appropriately and the fold that is underneath the zipper plaque boxing. In other words, the boxing under the zipper plaque. It's folded so that it is exactly the same as it was sewn onto the opposite plate. When she comes upon the pins that pin the material in place, she will remove them before she starts sewing over that area. Now here's a flap of fabric that's been folded under one way. It's going to fold naturally the same way. If it did not, make sure you fold it the way that it was sewn onto the opposite plate. We've skipped ahead here and are coming to the opposite end of the zipper plaque boxing where the strap is, and also the fold that needs to be folded under the zipper plaque. Don't forget to install the D-ring on the strap. I know we're showing a lot of video, but there are a lot of great techniques in here, and we don't want to miss anything. Here she's coming to another 90-degree turn, and she pulled the pin, and make sure that that corner is matched up. Should be, because it was basically pinned almost around the entire perimeter. And this is the last leg, and then she's going to run into her previous stitching, and she'll sew over it by 2 to 3 inches. And then those plates will be attached to our boxing, completing the cushion. If you'd like, do some reversing there. We're done. Cindy turned the cushion right side out. We did not show that. It's now time to stuff the foam into the cushion cover. Since this is such a large cushion and it has a lot of shape, Cindy has opted to get a helper to help push the foam into the cover. Notice how the foam is being compressed or folded in half like a taco to basically let it shrink in size to get inside that cover. This is like wrestling an alligator. I put it between my legs so that I could keep it squeezed together as I pull the cover onto the foam. This is shown in double time. You may be asking, why is the foam covered in its own fabric? Well, that's kind of like a pillow protector material. It covers the foam and keeps dirt from getting to the foam. If dirt gets to the foam and it gets a little bit wet, then mold and mildew can grow. So any kind of extra cover is just an added protection to keep the foam nice and clean. If your foam is wore out or moldy, you may want to replace it. Sayrite sells high-density foams in multiple options of sizes and also firmnesses, from medium to firm. For a cushion like this, I would choose a medium firmness. This high-density polyurethane foam is 5 inches thick, and then when the cover is installed, it compresses it down to about 4 1/4 to 4 1/2 inches in thickness. Notice the pockets at the end. We can slide the slider inside that pocket. It disappears completely. Looks great. Well done, Cindy.
Very nice, Cindy.
Don't go away. The materials list and the tools list is coming up next. It is only through your loyal support that these free videos are made available. Thanks for your loyal support. And be sure to subscribe to the Sayrite YouTube channel. Click the bell to be notified of new videos when they become available. Thanks.
For this cushion project, we used a Krypton home fabric that's available from Sayrite. There are multiple styles and colors. Sayrite also has thousands of decor and upholstery fabrics that work great for cushions like this. Check it out at the Sayrite website. These are some related videos that may be of interest to you. Click on them if you'd like to see them. I'm Eric Grant, and from all of us here at Sayrite, thanks for watching.